Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're tackling a giant of Western literature, Sophocles' Oedipus Rex. But we're looking past just the tragedy everyone knows.
We are. We're framing it differently. Think of it as maybe the ancient world's most intense detective story.
Right, a detective story, but also a really brutal legal and philosophical drama.
Exactly. And our mission today is to dig into how the play works, almost like a judicial inquiry. Oedipus is the investigator, isn't he?
He is, yeah. He's driving the whole thing.
But he's also, terrifyingly, the one he's looking for. We want to analyze that relentless search through the lens of ancient Greek ideas about justice, about guilt, and this concept of pollution.
And you really can't get Oedipus, or much of Greek tragedy actually, without grappling with this foundational idea, inherited guilt. It's not just bad luck.
No, absolutely not. It's more like
Right.
contamination, something that travels down the bloodline.
It's the engine of tragedy, really.
Yeah, it is. You see it laid out so clearly in Aeschylus's Oresteia. Take Agamemnon's death. It's not just his wife Clytemnestra getting revenge for him sacrificing their daughter Iphigenia.
There's more to it.
Oh, much more. The sources call it overdetermined, meaning multiple factors, multiple deep-seated patterns of revenge and reversal are all converging on that one moment.
So it stretches back generations. It's the past literally coming back to haunt him.
Precisely. You trace it back to Agamemnon's father, Atreus. He committed this absolutely horrific crime against his own brother, Thyestes.
The banquet, right, where he served Thyestes his own children.
That's the one. Just monstrous. So when Agamemnon is eventually killed, Aegisthus, who is Thyestes' surviving son and helps Clytemnestra, he doesn't even try to hide his motives.
I think admits it.
He boasts about it, says his part in Agamemnon's murder is straight up revenge for what Agamemnon's father did to his father. It's inescapable, that family history.
Wow. So Agamemnon is paying the price for his father's actions. The whole family structure, the oikos as they called it, it becomes this kind of inherited prison.
It really does. The individual feels almost powerless against the weight of that history. And that sets the stage perfectly for Oedipus, doesn't it?
Yeah, because he actively tries to escape his fate. He hears the prophecy about killing his father and marrying his mother, and he runs away from Corinth, thinking he's dodging it.
He thinks he's being clever, acting decisively. But the curse on the house of Laius, his actual family, was already in motion. It had, in fact, already ensnared him years before he even had a clue who his real parents were.
Just devastating. Okay, let's dig into that mechanism of the curse more, this idea of miasma, or familial pollution. The sources stress this wasn't just a moral failing, was it? It was physical.
Yes, miasma is crucial. Think of it as a kind of spiritual sickness, but one with real-world tangible consequences. For the Greeks, a major crime, especially shedding kindred blood, created this religious contamination. It wasn't abstract.
And in Oedipus Rex, it's the plague.
Exactly. The city itself is physically sick. Crops are failing, babies are stillborn, livestock dying. Why? Because the source of the pollution, Laius's killer, is living among them undetected.
The pollution is so potent, it even affects the perpetrators themselves. You mentioned Clytemnestra in the Oresteia. She hopes she can somehow appease what she calls the thrice-gorged demon of the family.
That image is chilling, isn't it? A demon that's perpetually hungry. It underlines that the curse demands endless payment, endless vengeance. It just won't stop.
Yeah, because it's seen as a ritual contamination, it has real social and political teeth. This wasn't just a metaphor for the Athenians.
No, it was very real. They had a specific term for someone considered ritually unclean or cursed. Anagis.
Anagis. And what happened if you were declared anagis? What were the consequences?
It was devastating. Total social ostracization. We have a source, Aestines, who mentions a political maneuver where opponents suggested declaring certain Athenians anagis to get them expelled from sacred grounds.
So it could be weaponized politically.
Absolutely. Declaring someone ritually untouchable meant destroying their public life. Exclusion from religious ceremonies, civic participation, often leading to exile. It was social death.
So when Oedipus's crimes finally come to light in Thebes, the horror isn't just moral shock. It's the raw fear that this king, this source of profound miasma, is literally poisoning the city and needs to be expelled immediately to save everyone.
Yes, the urgency is palpable. He has to go.
This whole system, it seems to create these impossible ethical traps, like the double bind you mentioned with Orestes in the Oresteia. Apollo commands him to avenge his father, Agamemnon.
Which is a sacred duty, a religious obligation. You have to obey the god.
But to do it, he has to kill his own mother, Clytemnestra. which is, the ultimate taboo, the kind of act that generates the very pollution and curse he's supposed to be ending.
It's the perfect tragic knot. Punishing the wrong means committing an even greater wrong, perhaps, but not punishing the wrong means disobeying the god and failing his father.
There's no way out. You're damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Precisely. It's total paralysis. And Orestes himself sums up that horrifying logic when he confronts his mother. He knows what killing her means, but he says, essentially, you killed someone you shouldn't have, now you suffer something you shouldn't have to.
The cycle just keeps turning. The doer suffers.
It demands that constant, brutal reversal.
But Aeschylus, in the Oresteia, he doesn't just leave it there, does he? He actually offers a way out of this endless cycle of family horror, the oikos.
He does, and it's a monumental shift. He moves the resolution away from the family, the blood ties, and into the realm of the city, the polis.
How does he do that?
Well, he fundamentally rewrites the older Homeric way of thinking where these conflicts just festered within families. Aeschylus relocates the solutions squarely within the structured order of the polis, the city-state.
He literally changes the venue for the final act.
Exactly. The whole story, Orestes pursued by the Furies, who represent the ancient claims of blood kinship, culminates not in more revenge, but in a formal trial. In a law court, the Areopagus, right in the heart of Athens. The implication is huge. It's saying that only the state, with its established procedures, its laws, its debates, can actually halt the cycle of blood vengeance. Only the polis can achieve a kind of justice that transcends endless private retribution.
Okay, so connecting that back to Oedipus, when he starts his investigation in Thebes, determined to find Laius's killer and save the city from the plague.
He's acting like the head of state, right? Trying to impose order, find the truth for the public good.
He's sort of mimicking that transition Aeschylus showed, moving towards state-based justice. But the absolute horror is that he's using the rational tools of state inquiry.
To uncover the irrational, inescapable pollution rooted deep within his own oikos, his own cursed family history. The tool reveals the horror it was meant to contain.
Let's zero in on the play itself as this judicial inquiry. It must have resonated deeply with the Athenians, this idea of a leader investigating a crime.
Oh, absolutely. Oedipus takes charge like a chief magistrate, doesn't he? Investigator, prosecutor. It directly mirrors how Athenian law itself developed.
You mentioned Draco's Law earlier, from the 7th century BC. What was the main goal there? Was it about finding perfect moral truth?
Not primarily, no. It was much more practical. Draco's homicide law aimed, first and foremost, at suppressing self-help.
Meaning, stopping people from taking revenge themselves.
Exactly. Stopping the endless cycle of violent private vendettas. And second, it was about establishing that homicide cases fell under the jurisdiction of the state. The government wanted control over how murder was dealt with. It was about order as much as justice.
So Oedipus, demanding answers, threatening witnesses, vowing punishment. He's acting with the authority of the state, but also with this almost primal personal intensity. It's like he's embodying both the old way and the new.
He is, and it's important to remember this shift to state control wasn't some neat, clean process, even by Sophocles' time. The state offered courts and procedures, yes, but the Athenians themselves, they're famously, almost comically, prone to lawsuits.
Right. Our sources say they were very aware of being, litigious.
Extremely. They often saw the courts not just as places for resolving disputes, but as tools, instruments for, let's say, institutionalized aggression against rivals.
Institutionalized aggression. That's quite a phrase. It suggests that maybe the state didn't fully solve the blood feud problem, it just gave it official channels.
That's a very sharp way to put it, and there's truth there. Litigation often did become a new kind of feud. It could drag on for years, pull in family, friends, witnesses, snowballing way beyond the original issue. It was like war fought with rhetoric and legal documents.
So if you're an Athenian going to court, maybe genuinely seeking justice, but also definitely wanting to crush your opponent, how do you manage that? How do you justify the desire for revenge while still looking like a respectable citizen?
That was the rhetorical balancing act. You couldn't just stand up and say, I hate this guy and I want to ruin him. That wouldn't fly. Revenge was definitely a motivator, a powerful one, but you had to frame it carefully.
You got to make it sound legitimate.
Precisely. It became part of this contrast. There was illegitimate use of the courts, purely selfish or malicious, and then there was legitimate use. You had to argue, your case fell into the second category.
Do we have examples of how they did that? Like in speeches?
Yes. Demosthenes gives us a great example. He's writing a speech for a client named Ariston who'd been assaulted. Ariston openly states he wants full revenge. He has to say that almost, to maintain his honor as a man. It satisfies that older expectation.
Okay, so he owns the desire for revenge.
He does, but then immediately pivots. He stresses that he's a modest and good citizen, someone who respects the laws and isn't just trying to cause trouble. He argues that seeking revenge through the courts is actually part of being a good citizen, upholding the law against someone who broke it.
That's fascinating. It's this constant tension. And you see that tension right in Oedipus, don't you? He has this ferocious will to find the killer, punish them. That's the primal drive. But he couches it in terms of obeying the oracle, the divine command, serving the state.
He perfectly embodies the system, the ancient rage channeled through the new structures of the polis.
And ultimately, for a case to succeed in Athens, it wasn't just about the letter of the law, was it?
No, it had to serve the demos, the people. A just result meant showing that your personal interests, getting revenge, restoring your honor, maybe even getting compensation aligned with the broader interests of the community, the city-state.
Oedipus starts his quest absolutely certain that finding the killer serves both his own royal authority and the city's desperate need to end the plague.
And the tragedy is, he's right, they do align. But the very truth that saves the city by fulfilling that alignment completely destroys the men who uncovered it.
The inquiry succeeds, but the investigator pays the ultimate price. Which brings us to this deeper philosophical layer, the clash between human knowledge, human effort, and this sense of divine fate.
Right. Oedipus is brilliant, rational, driven. He solves the Sphinx's riddle. Yet his whole life unfolds as if pre-written, despite his best efforts to change the script.
And the gods in Greek tragedy, they aren't just passive observers in this, are they?
Yeah.
Our sources suggest they sometimes take a rather active role in human misery.
That's definitely a recurring theme. The gods aren't always benevolent. They can be shown actively stirring up trouble or punishing human arrogance or even just playing games with mortals caught in the middle. Think of Hippolytus Aphrodite directly causes his suffering because he slighted her.
It wasn't random chance. It was divine intervention, often punitive.
Often punitive, yes, or stemming from rivalries between the gods themselves, with humans as collateral damage. It introduces this element of, well, cosmic unfairness sometimes.
So if the gods are potentially manipulating things from behind the scenes, how much does human intelligence or knowledge, like Oedipus's brilliance, actually count for?
That's the grim question tragedy keeps asking, and often the answer seems to be not enough. Knowledge alone frequently isn't sufficient to avert disaster. That fatal mistake, the hamartia, the error in judgment, or the misfact that brings everything crashing down is a common trope.
It highlights what the Greeks saw as the basic uncertainty of human things. You can be the smartest person alive, but you might still be doomed by something your ancestor did, or by a piece of information you just don't have.
Exactly. Your fate might hinge on something completely outside your control or understanding.
The Greeks had words for the kinds of wisdom needed to deal with this, didn't they? Sophos and Sophrosyne.
Yes, and the distinction is vital for understanding characters like Oedipus. Sophos is typically intellectual wisdom, cleverness, the ability to know things, to solve problems. Oedipus has Sophos in spades. He's the riddle solver, the sharp investigator.
But he's spectacularly lacking in Sophrosyne.
Utterly. Sophrosyne is different. It's about moderation, temperance, self-control, practical wisdom in how you act. It's knowing your limits.
And the tragic hero often blows past those limits.
Almost always. They're driven by excess, excessive pride, ambition, anger. In Oedipus's case, definitely anger and impatience. Look how he reacts when the prophet Tiresias, the blind seer, hints at the truth.
He explodes, accuses Tiresias and Creon of treason instantly.
Right. He refuses to pause, to reflect, to moderate his response. He's driven by this passionate need for immediate, clear answers. And his pride won't let him consider he might be wrong. That lack of Sophrosyne is fatal.
It's like his intelligence, his sophos, becomes a weapon turned against himself because it's not guided by that inner balance, that self-control. Plato later made a similar point, didn't he? Contrasting the reflective human mind with cattle, saying real excellence needs self-mastery.
Yes, the idea that true human flourishing requires controlling impulses and passions, not just being clever. Oedipus's brilliance is untempered, and so it leads him straight to the abyss.
The irony is just crushing. His relentless quest for truth, which you could see as the highest application of human intellect,
is the very thing that condemns him. It forces this collision between what humans can figure out and what the universe, or the gods, have actually decreed.
and this ancient awareness that human knowledge has limits, that we can't know everything. It even shows up later in Roman law, which built on a lot of Greek thought.
It does. There's a great quote from the Roman jurist Ulpian. He basically admits the limitations of law itself.
What did he say?
He wrote something like, "Neither laws nor decrees can be written to cover every single case that might possibly happen, but it's enough if they cover the things that usually happen."
That fits Oedipus perfectly.
Yeah.
Law is designed for the usually happen scenarios, the typical theft, the normal dispute.
Right. But Oedipus's situation, killing your father, marrying your mother, becoming king, all unknowingly fulfilling a prophecy. That's the ultimate outlier. That's the case that never usually happens.
It's outside the bounds of what human law is really equipped to handle.
Exactly. The rational system of the state, created to manage chaos, is suddenly faced with a kind of primordial chaos that exposes the limits of that very rationality.
So let's talk about the fallout. When the truth comes out, Oedipus's crimes don't just wreck his own life. They're seen as polluting the entire city of Thebes. Why is the king's pollution so uniquely catastrophic?
It goes back to that deep connection in Athenian thought between the individual citizen and the fate of the polis. Good citizenship, being virtuous and lawful, was thought to benefit everyone. But bad citizenship, especially rooted in self-interest or moral failure,
Could drag the whole city down.
that was the belief. It could lead to public misfortune. And Oedipus isn't just any citizen, he's the king. He embodies the state. So his hidden crimes represent the ultimate failure of leadership, the ultimate source of contamination. His private actions have devastating public consequences.
The leader's character is basically inseparable from the state's well-being.
That's precisely the argument Demosthenes makes. He claims a man's personal depravity. He uses the word poneros, meaning wicked or base, is indistinguishable from his politics. A leader's flawed nature, he suggests, directly causes public harm.
So when the leader commits the most heinous acts imaginable, patricide, incest, it's not just a personal failing. It's seen as poisoning the entire social and political body.
Absolutely. The crisis in Thebes, the plague, is the literal manifestation of that belief. The political health of the city is tied directly to the moral state of its ruler.
And because the pollution is so total, coming from the very top, the solution has to be equally drastic. Exile, self-mutilation, death. Something extreme is required.
Yes, the disruption caused by crimes of such high status, especially these particular crimes which violate the most fundamental taboos, is considered total. Ordinary legal remedies aren't enough. The source of the miasma must be physically removed, expelled, to allow the city to heal.
It's interesting, though, to compare the severity of Oedipus's fate with how Athenians actually handled other serious crimes. Were their courts always quite that harsh?
Not necessarily, especially for civic failures. Take something like draft dodging, astratia, or even failing to pay public debts. These were serious offenses. The typical penalty was a timia.
The timia, that's disenfranchisement, right? Loss of citizenship rights.
Exactly. You lose the right to vote, speak in the assembly, hold office, bring lawsuits. It was a major social penalty, a kind of civic death, but it wasn't actual death or exile in the way Oedipus experiences. It suggests that democracy had a certain tolerance for some kinds of failure, maybe in the military or financial spheres.
But there was absolutely zero tolerance for certain kinds of moral outrage, especially when status was involved.
Correct. The concept of inuria, outrage, or insult was critical. The severity wasn't just judged by the act itself, but heavily influenced by who did it to whom and where.
Context mattered.
Hugely. An offense against a parent or a magistrate or committed in a sacred place like during the games, those were considered far more serious. Oedipus's crimes hit the absolute worst combination. Against a parent, Laius, committed by the highest authority, the king, resulting in a citywide public disaster, the plague. The system demanded the most extreme response.
So the polis, the city-state, which was supposed to be the rational solution to the old horrors of the familial curse, the oikos,
ironically becomes the very instrument that has to enforce the punishment for that deep, ancestral, seemingly unavoidable crime.
the law has to act, even when the crime seems driven by fate.
The law must act. The state's primary function, in this view, is to restore order. And that means purging the source of the ultimate miasma, regardless of intent or circumstance. The city's survival depends on removing the pollution. It's a stark commentary on both the necessity and the sometimes brutal limitations of law when faced with things beyond its comprehension.
Okay, so wrapping up this deep dive, it's quite a journey we've taken.
It really is. We've seen this terrifying shift, haven't we? From the inescapable, almost mystical horror of the inherited family curse, the oikos model,
To the rational, demanding, but maybe still flawed system of state justice, the Poulos model.
And Oedipus is caught right in the middle. He's the brilliant investigator using the tools of reason and state power.
But the truth those tools uncover is rooted in that older, deeper, faded horror. And uncovering it demands his own destruction to cleanse the community he tried to save. The search for truth succeeds, but the seeker is sacrificed.
It leaves you with this deeply unsettling feeling, I think, that sense that even our best systems, our laws, our rationality might have limits when confronted by, well, by the inexplicable or by harms that are already embedded generations deep.
Which really sets up our final provocative thought for you, the listener. The Athenians watching Oedipus were hit with this powerful reminder. Justice is complicated, sometimes terrifying, especially when certain crimes seem to pollute the whole community for ages, causing real suffering, like that plague in Thebes.
So the question for us today is, what parallels do we see now? What modern issues, maybe systemic failures or deep-seated social problems, feel like they create a similar kind of pollution, a sort of societal miasma?
And thinking about Clytemnestra's thrice-gorged demon, how capable are our modern systems, our laws, our institutions of actually addressing those deep-rooted issues? Can they truly cleanse the community and appease those kinds of long-standing inherited harms? Something to think about.
Definitely something to ponder.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. We'll be back next time to explore another set of fascinating sources.